Are you struggling to move on from a toxic marriage? You're not alone. This video shares the deeply personal journey I took to find healing and rebuild my life after leaving a painful relationship, offering practical tips and insights along the way. You can't control the past, but you can choose your future. This video is a raw and honest look at how I broke free from a toxic marriage and built a life filled with joy and peace. It's a journey of self-discovery and healing that might just inspire you too. I didn't wake up one day and realize my marriage was toxic. It was a slow unraveling, like the way paint peels off an old wall, one quiet flake at a time. At first, I thought we were just going through a rough patch. After all, no relationship is perfect. We all have our moments of frustration, distance, or stress. But what I didn't see, what I refused to see, was that I was shrinking. Slowly, invisibly, I had lost my sense of self. I was second-guessing my feelings, tiptoeing around moods, explaining away mistreatment, and accepting blame that wasn't mine to carry. What made it harder was that from the outside, we looked fine. We had a nice house, shared memories, smiling photos on social media. But behind closed doors, I was emotionally exhausted. Conversations became battles. Affection turned into obligation. Love felt like manipulation in disguise. The day I finally acknowledged that the marriage wasn't just unhealthy, it was toxic, wasn't loud or dramatic. It came in a whisper. I looked in the mirror and thought, I don't recognize myself anymore. And that's when I knew something had to change. Toxic relationships don't always break with an explosion. Sometimes, they dissolve in silence. My breaking point wasn't one fight or one betrayal. It was the cumulative weight of years spent compromising who I was just to maintain peace. I found myself dreading coming home. I started journaling obsessively because it was the only place I felt heard. I stopped sharing my dreams because they were always met with eye rolls, or worse, sarcastic put-downs that chipped away at my confidence. There was emotional manipulation, subtle, slippery gaslighting. Things I knew had happened were denied. My reactions were framed as irrational. My needs were called too much. I became so conditioned to prioritizing their comfort that I forgot my own voice. The moment I decided to leave wasn't a bolt of lightning. It was the realization that staying was killing me softly. My peace had become the price of our partnership, and I could no longer afford it. Leaving a toxic marriage isn't just about packing bags or signing papers. It's about peeling away the layers of guilt, fear, and doubt that have wrapped themselves around your identity. I remember sitting on the floor of our bedroom, surrounded by folded laundry, crying into a towel. Not because of something that had just happened, but because I knew I was finally done. Done hoping things would change. Done twisting myself into someone else's idea of enough. But deciding to leave is one thing. Acting on it is another. I spent weeks planning. I talked to a therapist. I created an emotional support circle, even if it was just one or two trusted friends. I consulted a lawyer to understand my rights. I journaled my thoughts every day to stay grounded. And eventually, I told them, I'm leaving. The silence that followed was deafening, but also liberating. For the first time in years, I had chosen myself. You think the hard part is leaving, but the real challenge is what comes after. There was anger, there was manipulation, guilt-tripping, empty promises of change, blame, shame, even threats. But I held the line. I had to, because every time I doubted myself, I remembered how unhappy I had been, and how far I still had to go. The practical fallout was overwhelming. Splitting finances, arranging housing, untangling years of shared life. If kids are involved, co-parenting dynamics can be incredibly complex. In my case, there were no kids, but it still felt like I was cutting away a part of my body. I made lists. I documented everything. I leaned heavily on therapy and self-help books. I had to relearn how to prioritize my needs without guilt. I reminded myself daily, I am not the villain for choosing peace. No one talks enough about the grief that follows leaving a toxic relationship. Even when you know it was the right thing, even when you're proud of yourself, it still hurts. You grieve the version of the relationship you hoped for. You grieve the time lost. You grieve the version of yourself that endured it all. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Nights I cried until I fell asleep. I missed the routine, even if it was dysfunctional. I missed being us, even if us was built on pain. But here's the thing. That grief is sacred. It means you loved. It means you hoped. And it means you're human. Healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't matter. Healing means honoring what happened and still choosing to move forward. Healing began slowly. First in fragments, then in rhythms. I started with small things. Going for walks. Cooking meals just for me. Rearranging furniture. Buying new bedsheets. Taking back my space, both physically and emotionally. I created routines that made me feel grounded. Like morning coffee with music, evening journaling, weekend hikes. I began therapy twice a month, and it became my anchor. Most importantly, I worked on self-trust. I had spent years silencing my intuition, and now it was time to listen. I asked myself, what do I want? What feels good? What do I need? The answers were simple, but powerful. I wanted peace. I wanted to feel safe in my own mind. I wanted to love without fear. Here are some of the most important things I learned through this journey. 1. Toxic love is not love. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it's meant to last. Love should feel safe, not conditional. 2. Boundaries are not selfish. They're survival. Learning to say no was one of the most empowering steps I took. You can be kind and still say enough. 3. Healing isn't linear. Some days, you'll feel strong. Other days, you'll question everything. Both are normal. 4. You have a right to your story. You don't need permission to feel what you feel. Gaslighting loses its power when you reclaim your truth. 5. It's okay to outgrow people. Just because you shared history doesn't mean you owe your future. 1 year after leaving, I looked back at who I used to be, and I didn't recognize him. Not because he was weak, but because he was buried. And now, he was rising. I had rebuilt a life that felt mine. I started traveling. I reconnected with old friends. I picked up hobbies I had forgotten I loved. I even learned to enjoy my own company, something that once scared me. And yes, I began to open myself to love again, but on new terms. No more fixing. No more settling. No more hiding who I was. Leaving a toxic marriage stripped me down, but rebuilding gave me the chance to redefine myself. For years, my worth had been tied to how well I could keep the peace, meet needs that weren't mine to carry, and tolerate mistreatment. But once I was free, I realized how distorted my self-image had become. I had forgotten what it felt like to believe in myself. So, I started small. I made a list, yes, a literal list, of things I liked about myself. It started with just 3 things. I have a kind heart. I show up even when it's hard. I'm brave for choosing to leave. That list grew over time. Each time I honored a boundary, I added to it. Each time I resisted the urge to apologize for my emotions, I added to it. Every step I took in rebuilding my life, no matter how small, was proof I am enough. I also made it a point to challenge the negative voices in my head, the ones that had been planted over the years. Whenever I caught myself thinking, I'm too sensitive, I'd pause and ask, or am I just finally feeling what I've been denying? Rebuilding self-worth isn't about ego. It's about coming home to yourself. This journey taught me that emotional healing must go hand in hand with practical action. If you're watching this and wondering, how do I even begin? Here are some steps that helped me move forward. 1. Create a safe environment. Physically and emotionally, your environment matters. Clean out your space. Donate things that carry negative memories. Rearrange your furniture. Make your home reflect who you are becoming, not who you were while surviving. 2. Establish a routine. After chaos, structure can be healing. Wake up at the same time. Make your bed. Eat meals that nourish you. Find daily rituals that anchor you in the present. 3. Seek support. Whether it's a therapist, support group, or one trusted friend, don't do this alone. Processing trauma out loud helps you make sense of it. 4. Track triggers and progress. I kept a journal of emotional triggers, recurring thoughts, and breakthroughs. Over time, I could literally see my healing on the page. 5. Celebrate milestones. The first week you don't cry. Celebrate it. The first time you say no without guilt. Celebrate it. Healing is made of 1,000 tiny wins. 6. Don't rush into another relationship. I had to learn how to date myself first. When you've been in a toxic relationship, your view of love can be warped. Take time to detox emotionally before you invite someone new in. 7. Financial independence equals emotional safety. One of the most empowering steps I took was organizing my finances. I opened a separate bank account. I built a budget. I educated myself about money. And with each financial decision I made, I felt more in control of my life. There's something beautiful about destruction. It clears space for rebirth. I never thought I'd say this, but leaving that marriage gave me gifts I didn't even know I needed. The version of me that came out the other side wasn't just stronger. He was wiser, softer, more self-aware. I learned how to listen to my gut, how to enjoy solitude, how to find peace not in someone else's approval, but in my own stillness. I started traveling, alone. I took a weekend trip to a mountain cabin, just me and a stack of books. I remember sitting on the porch one morning, coffee in hand, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunrise. No noise, no conflict, just me, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely, I felt free. I began doing things I used to love: music, writing, long drives with no destination. I remembered who I was before I had to survive someone else's storm. I reclaimed myself, piece by piece. If you're still in it, if you're just beginning to think about leaving, if you've left but feel like you're drowning in grief, let me tell you something. You're not weak for staying as long as you did. You were hopeful, you were loving, you believed in the possibility of change, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. And you're not cruel or heartless for choosing to walk away. You're choosing truth over illusion, peace over chaos, life over mere survival. You are allowed to say, "This is not what I want anymore. I deserve kindness. I don't owe anyone my silence or my suffering."